Hello, everybody. Welcome to another AVA Interviews. Is it singular or plural? I have to go back and look. But welcome to another interview. You may remember our first interview on here that we had recorded was with Tamara Ryan, and now we have her back. Hi, Tamara.
Hi, glad to be back.
And glad to have you back. Now, when we discussed last time was the subject of when you have a demo, what do you do with it? How do you market it the best way? And
Mhm.
as we were going through that, there were like a million different tangents we wanted to go on, but of course we had to stay focused.
Yep.
So this is one of those tangents. The open-ended question of professionalism, what is it in VO and why is it important? So
Very important question to ask.
yeah, I was actually having an interview with Sean Chiplock, which will go up tomorrow. Well, tomorrow from today. This interview will go up later, but I was discussing with him, and professionalism, the topic of that came up repeatedly. So it's not
Yeah.
just a matter of being talented or a matter of being persistent. It's a matter of how do you present yourself, because that can sometimes make all the difference.
Oh yes, yes. That actually goes right into my answer actually for the opening question.
Yeah, I wanted to.
Just
Yeah, I
oh, go
wanted to
ahead.
start just a very broad question of why is professionalism so important?
Yeah, basically, like what he says, it's not necessarily about talent at all. There's plenty of talented people um, out there, but it's the ones who are professional that will have a successful career, because if you're not, like, people are busy, this is a business, like, people, time is money and all of that, and if you can't understand that, and if you can't work within those kind of constraints and that field, then you're not going to get very far.
There's a lot involved to, well, anything in entertainment, but in VO, a lot of people make the statement something along the lines of, well, shouldn't it all just be about the talent or all about the voice? And, why should anything else matter? Well, there's always a lot that goes on behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird to say, but talent can be like a dime a dozen, you know? Like, you talent isn't everything. You gotta be on time. You gotta know what you're doing. You gotta be cordial. Yeah, there's just, if nobody wants to work with you, then it doesn't matter how talented you are.
So you heard it here first, folks. Not really, but you heard it anyway. It's not just a matter of talent. There's so much that goes involved to casting, to working, to being brought back, to making connections. And it's not just about being good at what you do and then people come to you, right? And, just kind of say,
Yeah.
like you said in our first interview, was it a demo agent money? As a few
Oh,
more,
right. Yeah. Like, if only that's how it worked.
oh, if only it would be so much easier. But the theme of this interview is going to be slightly different than the ones we did before, where before we just kind of had singular questions and then we discussed those and went off on a million tangents because that's what we do here. We have fun. But on this one, we're going to do a little bit more of pulling the thread, where I'm going to talk with Tamara about various situations or various people that you could interact with and how could you present yourself in the most professional manner. Professional here being what could you do to make a good impact on that person so that they remember you in a very positive light and not say, I don't know about working with that James guy. Remember the last time like you just messed with the microphone and it just didn't work afterwards? Ugh.
Oh.
He had a good voice for the project, but I don't want to bring him back.
Put his grubby paws all over my equipment.
I hear
Yeah.
engineers are very picky about that, so I'm sure
Yes, yes, yes.
we will hear about that too.
Yes.
But running down the list of scenarios and people to talk to and all that kind of thing, I wanted to first go over the subject of sending auditions from home, and we'll get to auditioning in a studio a little bit later. But right now, I wanted to go over like indie games or online commercials or what have you, where the people expect you to audition from home. The concept of
Hmm.
directing yourself, editing your auditions, sending the emails and the auditions. Ugh, excuse me, I had Wendy's and it was delicious, but it's all coming back now. But how would we go about presenting ourselves in the most professional way? And I have kind of written up here like 3-ish things that you absolutely should do versus 3-ish things that you absolutely should never do that would just tank your chances of being remembered positively.
Yeah. So, for 3 things that you should do is send the audition on time. It seems pretty basic, but it's really important because other people have deadlines that they need to meet, and if you can't follow the deadlines given to you, then you're not helping anybody. It's just you're not dependable. So send it on time.
Deadlines exist for a
Uh,
reason.
yes, exactly. Also, follow directions. If they ask you to name the file in a particular format, do that. They have it for a reason. And, um, if they don't want you to slate, if they do want you to slate, if they want you to bark like a dog 3 times at the beginning, just do whatever they ask.
Yeah, it's a weird profession.
Uh,
Don't question it. These things happen.
yeah, these things happen.
It's an interesting
And then also
observation.
send in the best. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, it's an interesting observation that one thing I've noticed is that a lot of people in the VO industry and entertainment, on one hand, they can be, kind of casual and kind of lax. It's not like, oh, you haven't done enough work to talk to me or anything like that. We're a pretty open bunch. But by the same token, they can be kind of picky too. You don't want to just, I'll send it as an MP3. Who cares about Wave anyway? It's an option. No, they actually write that stuff for a reason. If you ignore
Yeah.
if you ignore that, it can potentially look bad on you.
Oh, definitely. Because, it's all reflective of potential future situations. So it's like, well, if they can't follow this one simple direction, then how do I know they're going to be able to follow direction in a recording session? It's all connected. And
But
then I'd also say send in the best sounding audio you can. Just try to eliminate pops, and don't, if there's like a lawnmower going on outside, don't pick that time to record the audition. Like, just show that you've put some care and thought into your environment and wanting to sound your best. And speaking of, like, I'm a little sick, so I'm not sounding my best. So I apologize for that.
unless,
But
of
yeah,
course,
just
in the email requirements, they say you absolutely must lead with a lawnmower sound when you start up, then that might be a good
if,
idea. But until then,
yes,
no.
exactly. Uh, and then for 3 things you shouldn't do, yeah, don't have dogs barking in the background. Uh, send, don't send super quiet audio either. Um, check your levels, because when casting directors and producers are listening back to a bunch of auditions, they don't want to have to adjust their levels to because then if they have to turn their volume up a lot to listen to yours and the next one is super loud, then you've just killed their ears. So just, make sure your levels are where they need to be.
So the engineering aspect is definitely an important part of the whole process of looking like a professional.
Yeah, yeah, because, you want to take your listener into consideration. Um, and don't do 3 takes in a row of each line. I know that's like really popular in the kind of amateur realm, but unless it's being specifically asked for from your agent or the director or whatever, that's typically not how it's done. Like, if you want to do 3 takes, that's cool, but you do the whole script in one way, then you make a very different choice, and then you do the whole script again in that way.
Yeah,
But you don't do 3 takes in a row, because usually when that happens, like, people are slightly changing the emphasis on a different word, and that's not a different acting choice.
yeah.
So you're wasting people's time at that point.
I think that is an important note to make because, like you said, I've heard a lot of people And I'm not a casting director. I'm not in charge of video games or anything like that. But having done a few, basic YouTube projects myself that I was in charge of casting for, that is something I've noticed too. That a lot of people have a tendency to say, well, the more the merrier, right? If I just give them more lines, that just gives them a more to choose from, right? Well, in terms of auditioning, it's more of a waste of time than
Yeah.
anything. Unless it's like a wildly different take and it's just like a kill, like you're pounding these things out when you're auditioning and you go, oh, that was a good one. I got to get that one in there. If it's an absolutely killer one that was so different from the first one, then if the guidelines allow for it, or if they ask for it, then by all means. But until then, just limit yourself to the best takes of each one, right?
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's about acting choices. And if you're interpreting a character one way, um, then in order for that script to flow and for the listener,
So I
yeah,
guess,
so if you're interpreting a character and you've got one interpretation of it, then yeah, pick the best line, the best take for each line for that one. And then if you want to do a second take, that's usually very welcome, but you have to make a wildly different acting choice, interpretation of that character. Because if you're doing one line at a time and then you put the two takes of each line in a row, the flow of getting that casting director to listen and be drawn in and try to believe you as a character, that all gets thrown out the window when they hear a second line done in a wildly different way or a slightly different way. It's like you're throwing somebody out of the zone, basically. So your job is to try to draw your listener in and make them believe you as a character. So you don't want to disrupt that flow.
if you're going to drag them out of the zone, it better be for a darn good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about auditioning in a studio? And as I kind of discussed with Sean Chiplock not too long ago, um, more and more studios are expecting you to kind of send in your auditions from home, but I'm assuming, of course, that auditioning in person is very much still alive in various projects and places.
Yeah, sometimes it still happens, and in that case, always keep traffic in mind. Like, never blame the traffic for you being late. Like,
LA traffic's pretty awful, but
yeah, start your journey 2 hours in advance if you need to. Just try to arrive 15 minutes ahead of time. That way you can look at the script and have time to read over it and stuff.
and I'm assuming, of course, that if you misjudged your time but you were way too early, they're not going to throw you out, of course. The earlier, if you just keep to yourself and hang around, they're not going to throw you out, right?
Yeah, or I've done plenty of times where I just sit in my car and do vocal warm-ups until it's 15 minutes
Always being productive with your time.
beforehand. Yeah. Also, introduce yourself to the engineer, the director, to the team, and bring a pencil and some water.
Come prepared and make friends, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said in your first interview, and I love that line, you're not just a voice machine. You're not there to do the work and go home. You're there to make friends and connections and learn some things.
Yeah, I mean, people want to work with people. A novel idea, I know, but
until the day we're all replaced by machines, we want to work. We want to know that we're working with flesh and blood human beings.
Yeah, and it's so much nicer if you can work with somebody that says hello to you and is friendly and has a little bit of small talk, and it's just nice to work with.
Of course, not too much talk, right? Because I hear stories sometimes of people who go in the studio and they've got a great story to tell, and hey, they want to tell this joke they thought about, except it requires like 5 minutes of setup, and I hear that.
Oh yeah. Later, I have it written down to don't ramble and chit chat too much, because they are paying you by the hour. Don't make them think that you're trying to waste their time.
You're not a politician. Don't filibuster.
Yeah.
And of course, that would be one of the points we would go over. But what could you do in the studio? Like we've got a director on the other side of the glass and the engineer. What could you do during that audition process that might lessen your chances of making a good impression or possibly even getting hired?
What not to do, right?
Yeah, these kind of things and what not to do.
Yeah, don't touch the equipment.
Or the
Don't
engineer will
touch the
remove your
equipment.
fingers.
Yeah.
Or he will dream of it.
Yeah. That's important. I know you've got a home studio and a mic, and you've adjusted the mic for yourself all the time, but that doesn't matter. It's not your equipment. You don't touch it. Also, don't apologize a million times if you stumble or mess up. Like, just say pick up and keep going. That's usually the sign of a beginner, actually, is when they're like, oh my god, that was terrible, I'm so sorry, I'm sorry. That's just wasting time. People mess up all the time. It happens. It's not the end of the world. You just pick up and keep going.
So shows a lack of confidence and a waste of time when someone's sitting there apologizing for something that's natural, really.
Yeah, and then they feel like they gotta really stroke your ego and be like, no, it's okay, like you're doing great. Like, voice actors and actors tend to be a little insecure. They need a lot of ego stroking, but don't make it worse. Try to keep it to a minimum. And then don't talk about how bad the script is.
Oh, I imagine that would be a big one. Especially with the
Yeah.
scriptwriter in the room.
Yeah, exactly. Like, usually, I mean, we're talking about auditioning now, but when you're recording for an actual session, you've got, like, the writer and the producer and the director, and you've got, like, the whole team there. So, yeah, don't... Man, who wrote this? No one would ever say that. Just keep it to yourself.
It's not your script, and you're not the one sending your own paycheck, so read what's in
Yeah.
front of you.
And, I've heard before, too, that it's your job as an actor to make the crappiest writing sound like gold. That's why, writings definitely helps. There's also a bunch of times where people are like, hey, I don't feel like I acted this at all. It's all the writing, that carried it. So writing is important, but you don't want to blame your tools, for your craft.
Yeah. And I heard it said or read once that not just commenting on, oh, I don't like the way the script is written, but like if there's a typo, there's got to be a certain way that you bring that up rather than, oh, you made a mistake here.
Oh, yeah. I usually just been like, oh, hey, I'm just curious if this was, like, intentional. Do you want me to say it in a different way? Just checking.
Yeah, like you're putting the onus on you that, oh, I was confused or I don't know how to interpret this. Can you help me with this? So it's kind of a polite way of saying, this doesn't make sense. Can you help fix this?
Right, yeah. Like, let's work together on this little hiccup.
It's all about teamwork, but you do have to be a team first.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question I wanted to go over harkens back kind of to our first interview where we talked about emailing clients and sending demos, but I wanted to go more in depth with the process of emailing a client or someone who might be a client or maybe even just a colleague of what could you do to, I think we kind of separate this into individual categories like when you're emailing a client, an agent, a studio, a fellow voice actor, etc., what you can do to, in those areas, make yourself more positively remembered versus what can make you seem creepy or pushy or amateurish or weak or what have you.
Yeah. So, I would try to always address the client by name. Personalize it, show that you've researched and know who you're emailing.
Dear insert name here.
Yeah, that's not good. Be concise and to the point. Kind of like the don't chat too much sort of thing. You could be friendly and have a little bit of fun and stuff, but yeah, just try to be considerate of people's time.
Do you think there might be a cutoff point where you can be friendly and kind of chatty with them in an email without going too far, or is like where might the limit
Yeah,
be,
I
or
mean,
what
you
sorts of
don't
things
need
could
to.
you talk about?
You can ask them, if the holiday was good and a question here or there, but you don't need to you don't need to get into like the details,
No
sort of
funny
thing.
stories, no newsletters,
Yeah,
nothing like that.
unless they've subscribed to your newsletter, of course.
Yeah.
If they want to read about that stuff, they can. But
If it is a newsletter, send a newsletter. But if it's just
yeah,
like a friendly email to contact someone, you got to keep it concise, right?
right. And provide all the necessary files and documents. If especially if this is a repeat client and you're working things back and forth, if they've asked you for something, send it. Or if you're emailing a potential client, don't forget to attach your demo. Sort of things like that.
And then on the flip side of the coin, what could you do to really start bombing your chances? Oh, he's kind of creepy the way he's, just harping on me about can you hire me? Do you have work? You know,
Yeah. Don't send a generic spammy email. Yeah, the insert name here and just obviously that it's a cut and paste sort of email.
personalizing it is definitely important, which is why research is important too, right?
Yes, yeah. You gotta research your potential clients. Don't be rude about anything, even late payments up to a point. Like, people miss deadlines sometimes for payments, and that's okay. Honest mistakes happen. But if they're a day late on paying you, don't immediately be like, I'm gonna get my lawyer, sort of thing. Like, that's not cool.
Just because someone else may have intentionally or accidentally acted in an unprofessional manner doesn't necessarily give you the permission to act the same way.
Exactly. And don't ask for payment when you've already been paid. Like, just keep track of your payments and your invoicing, and yeah, that if you keep track of that, then you won't be knocking on doors of people who they don't need to be knocked on.
And what if you were emailing, let's say you. Okay, that was going down further the line. Let me dial it back a bit. What about, let's say, agents? Like either an agent you already have, or maybe an agency you're looking at putting your demo on or networking with?
Like emailing an agent?
Yeah, I'd say either or, where either you're emailing your own agent that you're already working with, or trying to get on an agency.
Well, if you're emailing your agent, usually it's for an audition or something. So in that case, send your audition on time and follow the directions. And unless you're asking your agent like a question, like every now and then you can ask your agent like how you're doing. Like, hey, have you been happy with my auditions recently? Is there anything you think I could be working on? You can do that every now and then. I wouldn't do it too much. You can also kind of keep them up to date on workshops that you're taking, because then it just shows them that you're invested in your career and that you're trying to improve. So that's good.
So feedback and
for,
showing that you're still working and improving, two definitely very good points.
yeah. But for both, you don't want to be too needy. You don't want to waste their time. You make sure it's relevant information and concise and to the point. And then for potential agents, again, yeah, concise, to the point, all the relevant information. Your recent jobs that you've booked with, if you know them, the name of the companies who hired you, like the producers and stuff. Because clients like to know, or the agents like to know, who the buyers are. Because that means potentially you could be bringing in clients that they don't have.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm kind of blanking now.
What might you say the approach or the mindset would be for talking to an agent? Because like when you're emailing an indie developer, you kind of adopt a little more of a casual type attitude where it's like, hey, how's it going? I really enjoyed your last game, yada yada yada. Would you say it's more kind of concise, stoic, even professional with agents, and not a whole lot of room for buddying up, or is there more room for a
Yeah,
casual atmosphere?
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't buddy it up too much. I mean, I'm sure there's ways that you can kind of give the information in a more casual, personalized tone, but I wouldn't go out of your way to try to include any anecdotes or little jokes or, like, let me tell you about my life story, sort of thing like that. Uh,
So much.
they're interested in your demo. They're interested in who you've worked with, and if you've got one, a referral. Those are pretty much the big three things.
So a bit more business-like as far as
Mm,
agents are concerned.
yeah.
And kind of on the same subject of emails and getting to know people, social media, Facebook, Twitter, there are far many that I don't get involved in because dang it, Facebook and Twitter just are so hard for me to keep up with. But social media in
Mhm.
general, what kind of going over ways to look professional regarding uploading comments or content or responding to comments or networking with people. Let's say like what can help you stick in people's minds and be remembered positively when you make a tweet or post on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, if an online presence is important to you, and it is, you know, definitely helpful if you're trying to self-market yourself, um, posting frequently is definitely a good idea. I'd say at least, once a day, once every other day, something like that. Um, to probably at least Twitter, Facebook are probably the two big ones. Instagram probably is another good one, I would say. Um, and if you have a hard time keeping up with it, uh, you can always use post planners. I think there's actually a site called Post Planner, but there's also Hootsuite and uh, Communit, I think. There are a bunch of different websites out there that will schedule posts for you. So you could sit down like once a week or once a month, whatever, and write out a bunch of posts ahead of time, and then it schedules it for you. And then that way you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the week or month or whatever.
Which I am
Uh,
always a fan of because I'm constantly forgetting to actually post things on social media.
yeah, me too. I actually have it written down to research a new post planner uh, for myself because I was using Hootsuite, but I don't want to pay the monthly fee anymore. But I don't know if there's a free version out there, so I'm gonna look into it.
You never know
Uh,
unless you look.
yeah. Um, but yeah, just remember that people are watching and that you're a brand. Like, you may not think of yourself as a brand, but you kind of are. So, if you're going on a bunch of rants all the time, or you're, maybe vocally open about politics or a certain thing, recognize that some people might not want to work with you because of that. And
Yeah.
either you're totally okay with that, or, maybe you're not. But you gotta keep that in consideration.
Yeah, it's just a thing that is. If you want to only work with people who fall into one ideology or political side of the aisle, that's up to you, but just under the knowledge that you could lose a lot of clients or just even people who want to contact or network with you just because they may not appreciate the kinds of things you're putting out or maybe the way you're putting it.
Yeah, definitely. And some people even consider your follower count as a tipping point for if they cast you or not, which kind of sucks, but I get it.
They want someone who has some sort of history and momentum.
Well, they want followers. They see somebody with a big follower count. It's like, oh, if we put them in this, then their followers are all gonna watch it or they're all gonna play it, because so it's for them. It's like a marketing thing.
Yeah, so social media definitely has its place in marketing, networking, and voiceover, which is something I'm still learning the pros and cons of myself because I'm like, sometimes I have to kind of get off my butt and force myself to actually go to Facebook or Twitter just because I tend to be a very, for lack of a better term, turtle like person. I tend to just kind of take all these things and hide them inside because I don't feel like expressing myself. But it's, like
Yeah,
you said, it's part of a brand of getting yourself known and meeting new people and letting people know what you're doing and what you're thinking is
yeah,
having the presence of mind to actually go on Facebook and Twitter and share something about your profession or your day and
yeah,
making yourself some
definitely.
sort of icon.
I struggle with it too, which is why I'm all about those post planners. Because the less time I have to think about it every day about doing stuff all the time, like I don't want to be glued on my phone or onto Facebook all the time. So I'd rather just kind of put stuff out there and then just focus on responding to things. Um, which, yeah, if somebody comments with a question or something, especially somebody that could be like a potential client, you want to be fairly quick to respond. Because jobs can be, a lot of the times, I needed it done yesterday. And if you don't respond within a short enough amount of time, then they're on to the next person. So, or even just fans, it's just nice to for people to feel like they're being heard and seen. So I would be fairly quick to respond to any comments.
So whatever gets you to interact with the people on social media without spending too much time that takes you away from things that could get you better connections and work is something to go for.
Yeah. Oh, and if you're being trolled, just stay professional.
They're trolls. They're everywhere. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and if you let them get to you and then you totally unleash on them, it doesn't look good on you. The troll already looks bad for being a troll.
Yeah.
Don't let them win by making yourself look bad.
I think that's another good point too, where if you're in arts or in arts and entertainment, regardless of what you do, part of that comes with critique and criticism and just people who don't like you or don't like the work you do. And you don't have to like that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's part of the business.
Yep,
So
exactly.
just expect
And
it
if you
and
can't take criticism, then this is a rough, rough field to be in.
yeah. I think sometimes you have to accept that if there are lots of people who do enjoy what you do, you did a good job. You don't have to worry about if there are 100 people in a room and 97 liked you, but 3 really hated you, well, you made 97 people happy. Focus on that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It doesn't help to focus too much on negative. So yeah, I also would not, I wouldn't brag too much. Like, it's all right to be proud of your work and share it and stuff, but if you're just bragging a lot, like, oh my god, I got this huge audition from this really important client. Everybody pray for me. I
Hmm.
don't know. It's just like, we don't really know about that.
There's got to be a balance between pride and humility.
Yes, yeah. And again, don't feed the trolls. Um, and don't talk too negatively about auditions or clients. Like, oh man, I got this audition today and like the script was terrible and they wanted me to do this, and it's like, just always assume somebody can see it.
Because they can,
Um,
right? Especially on Twitter.
yeah, or even if you've got privacy settings set up or whatever like that, doesn't mean people can't take screenshots and send them to other people. So just, always be aware of that, and don't badmouth clients either. I've seen some people post like people critique a performance and then the person is like, well, the director directed me that way, so it's their fault. And it's like, maybe not do that.
Yeah.
Like, you want to keep a positive relationship with the director. Like, if people don't like your performance and it wasn't necessarily your choice, then like, you should be satisfied with that, but you don't need to go out and badmouth the directors, because they're certainly not going to want to work with you again, and they might not recommend you to other people. So, yeah.
It kind of brings to mind, especially in this day and age, this golden age of transparency, as I sometimes put it. Uh, just think of all the actors and the icons and celebrities of our generation that, due to one bad joke or one offhanded thing that they did, virtually wrecked their careers. Just one moment of not thinking or telling a stupid joke, and boom, just
Yeah,
looking.
because they don't want to be associated with that.
Yeah,
If it kind of goes back to you being a brand, like whether you think about it or not. Like, yeah, people don't want to be associated with something that's super negative or racist or sexist or whatever. It's not good for their image.
no matter where you are, what you're doing, just assume someone's watching and listening. Even if you're by yourself, just,
Yeah.
by force of habit, assume someone's got to be listening. You never know when someone's walking by the house that day and they hear you bad mouthing someone.
Yeah. I mean, and it's up to you. You could know that and then decide that you're going to be who you are. And if people don't want to work with you, then that's, you're fine with not working with them. Cool. But just
You do have to be
recognize that
prepared.
that's a possibility.
Yeah. So on the business aspect of that, kind of appropriate, it's tax season or it's getting there for a lot of people. But the professionalism of managing business, and this I mean more along the lines of not just looking good, but just good things to do to set yourself up down the road, like how as a voice actor taxes might be different, how to create and send an invoice, how to create and manage a resume, things that you should do versus things that could get you in trouble down the road.
Yeah, you should definitely actually manage your business. That will help a lot in just day-to-day work and not accidentally sending an invoice twice or uh, yeah, making silly mistakes. Just keep track of that administration stuff. I like to use a site called voiceoverview.com. It's really handy. It keeps track of your clients. It keeps track if you've booked a job, delivered the job, invoiced and paid, um, like where you got that job from, and it'll also break down like percentage of your income comes from video games or animation or audiobooks or explainer videos, and that way you can even look like, okay, what's making me money and what's not. It's really super, super handy. I recommend it.
in our past dealings and discussions, you've always come across as a very analytical sort of person, someone who uses a lot of tools and a lot of graphs and charts and things, almost experiments, to know where to apply pressure, so to speak, and get ahead.
Oh yeah, for marketing, um, when talking about marketing, you definitely have to know that that kind of data and be able to track all that stuff. Because then, if you don't know what's working for you, then you're just, you know, you're shooting blindly into the trees, and maybe something happens, but yeah, you gotta be able to know how to work it.
So it is not just, a lot of people, I think, approach it like a nice hobby that makes money, and it's not. It's more than that. If you really want to get somewhere and grow, you need to treat it like a business, and all the statistics, the fun statistics and charts that go along with that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, because after a year of data, it's great to be able to look and be like, oh man, like I put so much effort trying to find clients for commercials, but I didn't book anything. But I see like 40% of my income was games, so I'm just gonna switch my efforts to that instead, and then yeah. And if you don't know that data, then you won't know to do that.
I think another important thing to bring up too, just to put it out in the light for people to think about and remember, is that income taxes work differently when you're in business for yourself, because it's not just taken off your paycheck at the end of the week, it's all taken off at the end of the year.
Yeah, so I think a good rule of thumb is to keep 30% of your income aside for taxes. And, if you don't need all of it, great. Then you've got money to go towards a new demo or something. So,
It's a nice gift to yourself, a late
yeah,
Christmas present, as it were.
yeah. You definitely don't want to have tax season come around and be like, oh crap, I owe so much money and I don't have anything. So just, yeah, keep 30% aside throughout the year. Um, and for like resumes, I'd keep it to one page. Um, Even if you've booked a whole lot of things, just pick like the most impressive stuff to put on there. Because you could say like X amount of years experience, but they don't need to see like 10 years of experience on a page.
Hmm.
you know?
Everything is concise and to the point.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go over networking too, on kind of a similar vein of social media. Not just making comments on Facebook or Twitter, but how would you go about sending an email to a voice actor you want to know but have never met? Or this kind of goes back in line with emailing a client, but maybe sending an email to a studio that you're already familiar with. Or what are good ways to continue to make contact and make a good impression on people after you've already met them?
Yeah. So I would just, when you're meeting somebody for the first time, I would take genuine interest in them. Um, don't think of them as just a potential job. They are a person. Take interest in what they do and who they are, and that will go a long way. And if you have a established relationship with them professionally, try to have a relationship with them outside of work. So, maybe try not to talk to them only about work. Follow them on Facebook or stuff, or Twitter, and engage with them about their daily regular life. Um, and yeah, follow them and their content. Be interested in what they're putting out, and comment on the things that they're doing, and give them encouragement for their creative endeavors as well.
Yeah, learning about hobbies and past endeavors and future ambitions. Get to know them too.
Yeah,
Pull a thread and see what happens.
yeah. So yeah, don't ask them point blank if they have work for you.
Yeah.
So just email them, be like, hey, I'm really struggling this month. You got something for me? Yeah, don't do that. Don't pester them frequently either. And don't lose track of who you've talked to. Don't accidentally send an introductory email to somebody.
That would look pretty weird.
Like, you've already emailed me before. Oh, sorry.
It helps to keep a list or use a marketing site to keep track of who you've contacted and when. Right?
Yes. A CRM is what it's called. Customer Relationship Management.
CRM.
Yeah.
And conversely, we touched on it, but what should you never do? Like, of course, like we said, we kind of touched on it, like, don't Facebook someone go, hey, what are you doing? I'm bored. Don't do that, right?
Yeah. Don't pester them frequently. Don't.
Their time is precious.
Yeah. Actually, I think we just did this. The not to do. Don't ask them point blank if they have work. Don't pester them, and don't lose track of who you talk to.
Yeah, well, that's a good summary then. And wrapping up our discussion a little bit, wanted to go over interacting with two different people within the studio. The first being the director. Like when you're sitting down in front of the mic and there they are in front of the glass, when they're giving you direction or you're asking for direction, or when you first enter, when you're parting ways, what are ways you can be positively remembered and what should you absolutely never do with a director?
Well, during recordings, I'd say definitely pay attention, especially during ensemble recordings. You're not just there to do you, like you're part of a team thing for those, so if it's it's your line and then you're 5 seconds go by and you're like, oh wait, is it me? Like you're just sitting around waiting until it's your turn to record, then yeah, that's not cool.
If you see the director
You want to
face
be
palm through the
engaged.
glass, it's not a good sign.
Yeah. Really listen to what the director has to say. Sometimes a director will start to give a direction, and then the voice actor might be like, oh, okay, yeah, I got it. Yeah, no, I got it. But then they do the line, and it's totally not what the director wants, because they didn't bother to really listen to what the director had to say.
Turns out I don't have it.
Yeah.
I thought I had it. I didn't have it.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask questions. That will help save a lot of time. So, if you don't know why you're saying what you're saying, ask. Or if you don't know how to pronounce a word, ask. Questions help everybody.
I'd imagine they would look forward to questions, not just, oh, he's asking another question, I just want to get out of here, but that they would actually encourage it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it shows you're interested and you want to do your job well, so it's good.
And what sorts of things should you absolutely never do with a director? Besides, not paying attention and with the things we discussed.
Yeah, don't badmouth the script again. Don't ignore direction. The director's telling you to do something, and you're like, I feel the character would actually do this instead. Like I'm an actor. I'm going to do it this way.
It's
you
all
don't know
about
what you're talking
you.
about.
I said it's all about you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the director and the engineer, they contribute, but you're the star, right?
Right. Yeah, don't do that.
Nobody likes a prima donna.
Right. And don't waste time chit-chatting or insisting on doing a line like 20 different times. They're paying you by the hour, so don't waste it.
And what about the engineer? Of course, we discussed not touching the microphone or the equipment, and that's their job, not yours. But what things should you definitely do with an engineer, either while you're in there or When you first enter, when you leave, following up?
I would definitely introduce yourself. Um, the engineer is usually the one who kind of takes notes and will work with you more than a director will. So, like, say if you're late or if you're rude or something, the engineer can turn to the director at any time and just be like, "Oh, she's always late," or she's terrible to work with. Like, you want to be good with the engineer.
And there's that glass wall between you too, with you're not hearing what they're saying. All you know is the mic is off, and he's turning to the director, and his lips are moving, but you don't know what he's saying.
Yeah, yeah. So you want whatever he's saying to be positive. And be in place when they mic you. You've got to stand the correct distance away from the microphone. Stand where you want to stand. Don't be fidgeting and moving around when they're trying to get a good placement. And cooperate during the recording. If they ask you to like step forward or back, do it and then stay in that spot. Just don't fly around the recording space.
Do not gesticulate wildly and then smack the microphone 360 degrees. It's probably not going to go too well.
Yeah. And don't blame them for sounding bad. like what'd you do? Because the engineer can make you sound good. Like, they can tweak things to make you sound better or bad. But, if something didn't sound right in a playback, don't blame the engineer if it sounded bad to you.
Yeah. Engineers do amazing things. They have the ears of a true professional.
Yeah. It's crazy, actually, how much time I spend listening to things. Sometimes when people do comparisons of certain audio clips, like, oh, this one's so much better. I'm like, I don't hear anything. My ears are not fine-tuned enough yet, I guess. But an audio engineer would, like, pick it up so quick.
They really do deserve a lot of thanks, praise, and attention for what they do.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I feel like they don't often get enough sometimes. They'll applaud voice actors for their performances, and that's great because voice actors do a lot of good and hard work for a video game or what have you. And directors get praised too for the things they're able to bring out of actors, and that's good too. But I feel like sometimes there are people that are part of the team that kind of get a little bit shafted, where they don't get the credit they're due. And it's very much a team effort where everyone is pouring in everything to bring this thing together.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, without the engineer, you got nothing.
And I wanted to go over networking too on kind of a similar vein of social media. Not just, making comments on Facebook or Twitter, but how would you go about sending an email to a voice actor you want to know but have never met? Or this kind of goes back in line with emailing a client, but maybe sending an email to a studio that you're already familiar with. Or what are good ways to continue to make contact and make a good impression on people after you've already met them?
Yeah. So I would just, when you're meeting somebody for the first time, I would take genuine interest in them. Don't think of them as just a potential job. They are a person. Take interest in what they do and who they are. And that will go a long way. And, if you have established a relationship with them professionally, try to have a relationship with them outside of work. So, maybe try not to talk to them only about work. Follow them on Facebook or stuff or Twitter and engage with them about their daily regular life. And yeah, follow them and their content. Be interested in what they're putting out and comment comment on the things that they're doing and, give them encouragement for their creative endeavors as well.
Yeah, learning about hobbies and past endeavors and future ambitions. Get to know them too.
Yeah.
Pull a thread and see what happens.
Yeah. So yeah, don't ask them point blank if they have work for you. So just email them, be like, hey, I'm really struggling this month. You got something for me? Yeah, don't do that. Don't pester them frequently either. And don't lose track of who you've talked to. Don't accidentally send an introductory email to somebody.
That would look pretty weird.
Like, you've already emailed me before. Oh, sorry.
It helps to keep a list or use a marketing site to keep track of who you've contacted and when. Right?
Yes. A CRM is what it's called. Customer Relationship Management.
CRM.
Yeah.
And conversely, we've touched on it, but what should you never do? Like, of course, like we said, we kind of touched on it, like, don't Facebook someone go, hey, what are you doing? I'm bored. Don't do that, right?
Yeah. Don't pester them frequently. Don't.
Their time is precious.
Yeah. Actually, I think we just did this. The not to do. Don't ask them point blank if they have work. Don't pester them, and don't lose track of who you talk to.
Yeah, well, that's a good summary then. All right, well, I think that would about wrap us up for today.
Awesome.
I think we've learned and talked about a lot of things that should, like, either people would think about or think should be obvious but aren't necessarily cemented in, or maybe something new that people have said, oh, I didn't really think about that from that perspective. I hope that whoever's listening can really use what they've learned today and apply that to whether they're working or auditioning from home, or they're networking, or they're in the studio, that hopefully they can start applying these things and they may be the most talented voice actor in the world, they may be the most persistent, they may know lots of people, but I hope this can take the professionalism to a new degree.
Yeah, I hope we've covered enough and that we've made some good points. I'm sorry that I was so sick, sniffling and coughing throughout the whole thing, but it was good.
Well, it was good to have you, Tamara. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you so much for having me back. It was fun.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, with that being the case, I think I will salute you. You cannot see my salute, but I am saluting you.
Salute returned.
I can't see it, but I trust you actually did it.
I did.
That being the case, I think we'll call it off. Thanks for watching / listening, everyone, depending on how you observe this. Thank you. Farewell.
Thanks.